The Five Rings Podcast, Toronto 2015 Pan Am Edition with Duane Rollins and Kevin Laramie. Here's Duane Rollins.
And welcome to the Five Rings Podcast. I am Duane Rollins. Kevin Laramie joins me, as he always does, in Montreal. Kevin, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good off a great night last night for Cycling Canada with Hugo Barrette getting his third medal. It was just a great moment watching it. It's a shame I couldn't be there yesterday. I was there earlier. But Cycling Canada has been racking up medals. Everybody's been racking up medals. It's been such a different experience as a Olympic and amateur sports fan to watch the Pan Am Games because we kind of get a feeling of how it is to be like Americans and watch the Olympics and see your country win everything. It's a little bit of that feeling, and I have to say, I can get used to this.
Yeah, sure. Well, I do worry sometimes that it might take the specialness out of it. Like, how much do Americans really get pumped up by a bronze medal in the middle of an Olympics, where it's always still exciting here. But so, that said, we'd probably take the good with the bad when it comes to that. The Americans, we should be clear, did actually overtake Canada finally for both the overall medals total and the gold medal total yesterday. But still, an absolute wonderful games for the hosts, historically successful games. They are, in many cases have their A lineup when other countries may not be bringing their best athletes, but nonetheless, there still is a level of success, especially when you look at the huge drop-off from like 4 or 5 in the medal table down to after that. There's countries that just don't get medals, and even in that. So I think that's significant. I always find it funny as a soccer guy, like all these countries that were rivals in CONCACAF, and we use that term loosely because they usually kick our butt. Meanwhile, when you look at it in multi-sport events, it's like Canada has like 150 medals and they have, one all time. So it's a little sad that we can't compete there, but at any rate. Kevin, it's so hot out, eh?
It's
so hot.
It's crazy. It's the mugginess, the humidity factor the last couple of days has been awful, and I can just imagine having to compete and to do very exhausting sport like endurance sport outside right now.
Yeah, could you imagine what it would be like to, say, walk really quickly for 20 kilometers in this heat?
Wow, that would be very hard. Well, just walking, period. This heat is hard. Imagine doing it quickly for 20 kilometers. But a little shout out to our friend Evan Dunphy, gold medal yesterday. Great performance, 1-2 with Inaki Gomez. But yeah, it must have been really hard to walk outside fast.
Yes, so that is the ultimate 5 rings bump right there. We've given a gold medal bump. I'd like to think maybe his talent and dedication to the sport might have played a bigger role, but we'll take the credit, right, Kevin?
Oh, absolutely. Congratulations again, Evan. Great job.
Yeah. Absolutely. Maybe we can get Evan on after things slow down. He's got the World Championships coming up soon, too, so he's going to be busy for a while. But hopefully we can maybe get touch base with him in the fall and, congratulate him personally. But, it did take a bit of pleasure in seeing someone that we've spoken to that did such a good work in rooting out some cheating in his sport to be rewarded. So I think that we needed to mention that off the top, and we did. On that note, Kevin, let's go talk about negative stuff. Let's talk about our wood medals, and we'll start with you.
My wood medal is the lack of baseball coverage, because it was a great baseball tournament that Canada won last night in a dramatic fashion. Walk-off victory. Let's just go quickly. It was 6-4. There's 2 men on base. There's a hit for Canada. Run comes in, 6-5. Still 2 run on bases. Then the United States get nervous. Pitcher throws to first base. Misses to pick off on first base. Ball lands really far. 1 run comes in. The other guy hustles around third, slides in home, safe. Canada defends the gold medal of the Pan Am Games on home soil to win in a walk-off fashion, 7-6. And you know what? The only way you could watch that game is on the CBC stream. That game would have been worthy to be played on TSN, Sportsnet, CBC, regular channel. It was a great baseball tournament that could have rekindled the love of baseball outside of the GTA. Speaking of here in Montreal, anywhere else in the country, it was a great victory, a proud moment for Baseball Canada, and unfortunately, it was not seen by as many people as it is worth of being seen, and that is a shame, I think, and shame on all the organizers for not putting the emphasis on that tournament, because that tournament could have brought a lot of people to the Pan Am Games, a lot of eyes to that tournament, and unfortunately, only the semifinals and finals were streamed. The rest were not even shown at all, and it's a shame.
Yeah, it's just anecdotally, talking to people that aren't opposed to the games but aren't like passionate about it either, like just normal everyday people that like sports. Last week, quite a few mentioned that they were disappointed. That they couldn't watch baseball because they're baseball fans, and B that it was an Ajax. Now I'm not going to go completely on the Ajax thing. For those that don't know, Ajax is spelled like Ajax, like the football club. It's a suburban community to the east of Toronto. Probably it'd be about 45 minutes to an hour on the train to get out there. So for downtown like people, it's a bit of a pain, but I think that's fine to build up the infrastructure there, and it looks like a lovely facility, and baseball is quite popular in that part of the GTA, so good for that. But it was a real loss, and it's one that doesn't make a lot of sense either. The only thing I can think of is that the reason they chose not to feature it in as a prime broadcast opportunity was because it was in Ajax, or perhaps because it's not an Olympic sport. It could have been that too. That although we all assume that it's going to come back in for Tokyo, that hasn't happened yet for sure, and it's perhaps could be that the IOC is mandating that they give priority to the sports that are on the full Olympic menu. And we've had this conversation throughout Five Rings history about how it's ridiculous that it's not. It's a sport that's widely played in Asia, widely played in North America, widely played in Latin America. Not so widely played in the power base of the IOC though, and even though that's exactly why they don't see it as a priority, is because it's not a sport that's played in their part of the world, but it's played in a lot of the world, and it's silly that it's not there. But congratulations to the Canadian team. Ernie Witt, the longtime former Blue Jay that was a fan favorite here, is the manager of Team Canada. People kind of like that, and the gold medal, that's the second time that they've won the gold medal on home soil, and in recent memory, 1999 being the last time in Winnipeg, so good for Canada. Kevin, let's go to my wood medal now. And my wood medal is it's a really serious one. Do you think we have time? We should maybe sit down and just reflect a little bit before I get into my wood medal. I'm just going to give people the proper amount of time for this, okay?
Let's go ahead.
We're all emotionally prepared. It's that stupid commercial for CIBC with the penguins. Hoy, okay, if you're not from Canada, then be thankful that you haven't seen this stupid thing. It's a CIBC commercial where they're advertising this feature where you can take a photo of your check and it will automatically deposit on your online banking. Whatever, that's a feature that's happening all over the world now. I have some security concerns about it, but alas, whatever. My issue with it is, first of all, every time I turn on the damn streaming, this stupid thing runs. I have to watch it like 6,000 times. I don't bank with CIBC. I don't care about the Penguins anymore.
Who uses checks anyways?
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, most people just EMT it now anyway. I'd rather them do free EMTs than take a photo of checks. I guess the government still sends checks out if you choose to have it that way, although I believe that they're getting rid of that as well. So this really is kind of a silly little thing. At any rate, the other thing I don't like about it is they make the man an idiot. And I hate the fact that they always make the men an idiot. It's because they want to make someone the idiot in this. And this guy is like, he's just good-natured, and he wants to go put his check in. This guy being a penguin. It's an animated penguin. However, let's put that aside for a second. And the wife penguin gets mad at him because he's looking for more checks. Why are you mad at the guy for making sure there's no more checks there? That doesn't make any damn sense to me. You're being horrible, CIBC, to dumb men everywhere. Not that dumb men need any help. We have a lot of help in the world. I get that. But it still frustrates me that I have to watch this stupid commercial all the time. And
anyways,
CIBC.
You know how I feel about penguins in general, just because of how they changed the Velodrome that I could have loved in Montreal but never got the chance because of those damn stupid penguins and animals. So you know how I feel about those penguins to start with. So I have to agree with you in that one, Duane.
All right. Five Rings podcast, penguin free. Okay,
penguin haters.
Let's move on. Penguin haters. All right, my bronze medal. Let's move it to something a little more serious here. It's Canada's golden girl that was the face of the games right from the get-go. We're talking about the trampoline superstar, Rosie McClellan. She won a gold medal again yesterday on Sunday in the trampoline. Everyone expected that, but again, I speak to this idea of these guys, these women that are faces of the games in Canada. You cannot understand the amount of pressure that athletes like this have on them to perform when you're in a country like Canada where you do get a few medals, but you don't get a ton of medals at the Olympic level.
Even at the Pan Am levels in the past, you're looking at maybe 70, 80 as opposed to the 150 you're at now. For them to have as much attention put on them and as much pressure put on them to go out and then perform what matters most to me is a good sign, and it's a good sign for Rosie that she is in line to at least be back on the podium again in a year's time. Karen Coburn, the former Olympian medalist too, was back on the podium as well. She has two Olympic medals in trampoline before Rosie came around. She's the first person that would really put that sport on the map here in Canada at the Olympic level, and she also got a medal yesterday. She's someone I think who talked about retiring after the last cycle and decided to stick with it. So good for that. 2 medals for Canada in the trampoline. Mexican woman was in the middle. And we do congratulate Rosie for that, and we look forward to watching her on the trampoline, the bouncy bouncy, next year in Rio. You'll hear a lot of me talking about the bouncy bouncy and the lead up to that. It's a fun little thing to watch, actually. It's very high. I think it's very high, very, very entertaining sport to watch. Anyway, Kevin, let's move to you and get your bronze medal, right?
My bronze is the entire USA delegation. You spoke earlier of how USA surpassed Canada in the total medals and the gold medals as well. Well, they did a great job. They have such a depth because they don't come to the Pan Am Games with their A lineup because of the World Championships and many different sports happens in the next 2 weeks to a month and a half and 6 weeks. So they don't come with their A lineup, but with the amount of depth and the amount of athlete they have in every single discipline, they still rack up their great performances at the games, and it has to be spoken for. Yes, the pool of athletes is a lot bigger to generate, to find good athletes, but the structure is there, the infrastructures as well, to get those athletes that are elite worthy to that elite level and keep them there. So I think the USA delegation, USA sports as a whole, has to be commended for the job they're doing at every single level, because even at those big competition, even though they're not the Olympics, they still get the medals and the results, so it has to be said.
Yeah. I mean, the Americans, it's money. It comes down to money, and I don't say that in a derivative, like an aggressive sort of way. I say that in a good way, that they get support. They get support from their corporate USA. They get support from their governing bodies. They're well supported, and it pays off in the end. And yes, the numbers are huge. This country is very, very big, and it's very wealthy, but not every country that's big and wealthy necessarily gets the same amount of success on the athletic field. It's a very sporting country, of course. We're very close to it culturally, but the U.S. sort of just has always supported its own very, very well. Sometimes to the frustration of the rest of the world, they don't like how brazen it can be sometimes, but that's a little bit of bitterness, I think, coming out, a little bit of jealousy. So, you got to tip your hat to them when they're successful, and they certainly are successful, particularly in these games. I still like to see Canada rail them in. I don't think it'll happen, but that would be kind of fun to win the medal race at home soil. But we'll move on from there.
All right,
Kevin.
My silver medal, Duane, is Evan Dunphy and Inaki Gomez. Both of them did the 1 and 2, the double, the gold and silver, in the 20-kilometer race walk competition at the Pan Am Games. A month before the Worlds that happens next month, while Evan Dunphy got the gold medal. Like we said earlier, he's a friend of the show. He's been on the show in the last couple of months talking about the Russia controversy with Coach Chevskin and all the situation with the doping people that were banned and actually competed while they were banned. He was one of the person responsible to get that story out in the light. Well, I think good karma really exists in the end of the day because he won. Great performance. He's the Canadian record holder at the 20-kilometer. And just a year before Rio, it's very good looking forward because he might have a chance to get a gold medal. Yes, in the race walk discipline, there's a very great European contention where they are very good. Europeans are good and Africans as well, which are not there in the Pan Am Games. But the level of competition is higher in the Olympics. So it's going to be complicated to get that gold medal at the Olympics, but at least it bodes well for the future. And just a great moment to see both Evan and Inaki embrace after the race. They're great friends, training partners, and they performed together. And their dream was to do the 1-2 on home soil, and they did it, and it was a great moment. And then Evan did the media round, CBC, and everywhere. It was just great to see an athlete that does a sport that's not recognized a lot, which is race walk, maybe getting the recognition it deserves for once.
Yeah, well, Canada doesn't have a great history in the hyper endurance events, like the road events. There, I mean, there was a silver medal back in the bike race in '84 in the cycling, but by and large, then that was of course a very there's a lot of people out there, and that time the Eastern Bloc wasn't there. But at any rate, that's going way back in the history, which is just nice to see there. We should note, like, as much as there's a lot of the power is not there. It's not like there aren't powerful countries in the Americas in race walking. There's a massive tradition of race walking in Mexico that stems back from the '68 games, where they got a medal in the '68 games, and it became very popular in the country. It's an interesting story, actually, how race walking became very popular in Mexico based on some success that happened in the '68 Olympics. So, there are some folks there that can compete in this, and regardless, you can only beat the field that's in front of you, and we do congratulate Evans, and we thank him for his pastime, and we hope that he becomes a household name in the near future, because good things should happen to good people. Kevin, speaking of good people that have done a lot in the sport, and this is the second day in a row I'm going to name him as a medal for myself, but I can't help myself. Pan Am record yesterday, blew it away by 6 seconds. Ryan Cochran is once again a Pan Am champion, once again has set himself up to be in the contention for Rio, and he might have done so at the expense of his World Championships, which start in about a week. If you notice, all the aquatic stuff was front-loaded. That's why the water polo tournament had to start so early in the Pan Ams, is because the World Championships for water polo start like in 3 or 4 days. So it's unfortunate that happened. The timing wasn't there, but Canada's maybe greatest ever swimmer got another gold medal, and we congratulate him for that. And I'll leave it at that. I said everything I wanted to say yesterday about him, but I didn't want to take the Pan Am record, and the fact that, again, another contender, another face of the games, came through and got it done when they needed to. Kevin, that leads me to my gold medal. My gold medal is the Canadian women's basketball team. If you watched the semifinal yesterday, no one in their right mind would have ever predicted that Canada could have I guess it would be woman-handled in this particular case, because I'm talking with the women's team, but could just handle Brazil so thoroughly in a game for a medal. They clinched at least a silver medal. They are in the gold medal side of this. This is a team that is ripe to go back to its second straight Olympics. They host the Olympic qualifier again next month in Edmonton. So anyone listening in Edmonton, get your butt out, buy tickets, get out and support this team. This team is good, and they're getting better, and they're part of this resurgence of Canadian basketball, both on the men's and the women's side. That gold medal game should be a blast. There's going to be a slight underdog in it, but you never know. It is at home soil. It is going to be rocking at Mattamy, which is, for those that don't know, is the old Maple Leaf Gardens, and it is a beautiful center. Basketball has been wonderfully supported right from the get-go. The men's tournament gets going this week. They did all the women's tournament first, and they're going to do all the men's tournament. So get out there if you can. Tickets are hard to come by now, so you might have to do your StubHubs and all that sort of stuff. But this basketball team is special, and they showed it on Sunday when they clinched a medal. So, Kevin, what's your goal?
My gold medal is Hugo Barrette, first track cyclist to ever win 3 medals at the same Pan Am game. On the Milton, it's the Milton track, but they call this CIBC International Milton Velodrome. Well, in that velodrome, in front of friends and family and supporters of the Maple Leaf, which he's not used to perform in front of, because track cycling, we're not going to lie to each other, happens most of the competition happens in Europe, so we don't really see them a lot live, and when it happens, it's either really, really early in the morning or during the afternoon while people work, so we don't get to see those beautiful athletes perform in the beautiful setting. When you watch a velodrome, the speed that you see of those cyclists, the uniforms, the equipment, the streamlining of everything, it's just a beautiful spectacle to see. And one of the most special event is the Kieran, because the first 8 laps of the 12, they're behind a motorcycle, and it's a dummy motorcycle. It means that it's a guy that is not reacting at all, straight face. He cannot do anything. He has to be played like a dummy. That's the origin of the name, hundreds of years ago. He breaks the wind, and so the first 8 laps, they don't really spend that much energy, and they slowly attained speed from 0 kilometers an hour to close to 50. Then around the 8th lap, dummy motorcycle comes out, and then for 4 laps, they jostle for position. They get in the right position, and then the bell rings, last lap, and it's the first to the line that wins it. So it's type of a sprint, but it takes a long setting up for the sprint. You never want to be first. Example, in the semifinal, to qualify for the final, 4 riders were in that heat. Top 3 were qualifying for the final. Hugo Barrette was not the first to try to go for it. It was the American. And at the end of that lap, the American was finished 4th, and he did not qualify because he was the first one to give effort. And it's like a poker game. He put his card out too early, and the other players countered it. And Barrette won that heat and eventually lost the gold, but he finished 3rd in that heat, coming from very far away to get that bronze to finish his Pan Am game with 2 gold and 1 bronze. First goal he had was in the team sprint event, which him and 3 other Canadian won the gold medal in that event. And then the Queen stage, or the King event for the track cycling, is the individual sprint event, and he won the gold in there as well. So it bodes well for Rio. He's going to be able to perform great in Rio next year on the track against, yes, the culture of track cycling has a great passion and support in Great Britain, France, and those countries that are not in the Pan Am Games, but they will be in Rio. But Hugo Barrette finally arrived on the international stage, and for the first time since Craig Helton in 1979, we have a gold on the track, on home soil on top of it, at the Pan Am Games. So Hugo Barrette with a great performance and becoming a star in the world of track cycling right now.
That sprint it has a bit of a tradition in Canada. I don't know if tradition's a strong way to put it. There's a bit of past success, I guess is how I'll say it, with a couple Olympic gold medals, both on the men's and the women's side. Or actually, Hernat didn't never win a gold, did he? But he was certainly medaled at the Olympics. It's so intuitive, the sprint. It makes so much sense. I mean, it's kind of fun, the cat and mouse game and all that sort of jazz, and it doesn't take long to pick it up. So to have a sprinter back in the race, I think is something that would really appeal to a lot of people, and it's so TV friendly to that event, right? Like it's bracket, and it's match racing 1-on-1. So Kieran, as you said, can be quite chaotic in its own fun way. But if you're not a cycling connoisseur, you may not necessarily instantly get the strategy. But it's pretty easy. It's pretty easy to understand the sprinting strategy when you see it there. I do actually have a question on the sprinting front, Kevin, I'm going to be a bit ignorant here, okay?
Yep.
If you were just so powerful, what would stop you from just blasting out and doing the whole race? Or is it just no one would be that much better to not, just go on front and just outrace them the whole time?
No, it is possible. We've seen Sir Chris Hoy. He retired now, but he was a Great Britain track cyclist, one of the best in history, and he used that tactic a lot. Example, at the last lap, you're the first one to go for it, but you create such a gap and maintain it that the other guys cannot catch up till the finish line. That's the whole thing. But you have to be wise in there too, and you have to be really confident in your abilities. And it depends. If you have one cyclist that's really, really a notch above everybody else, he might try to use that tactics. But you see that tactics used in the earlier heat, where there's a bigger gap between the competition level of maybe the great cycling countries and the upcoming cycling countries. So when there's a big gap between there, you see that strategy. But it depends too. Do you want to waste that energy earlier on and not being able to use later? Because a lot of track cycling event happens in sessions, which means that you might do more than one event in 3-4 hours. So you need to conserve energy as well. So sometimes strategies will play a role where you can conserve maybe that final kick that at the end of the gold medal round will get you that gold medal instead of silver. So that is part of the strategy as well.
All right, I follow. So it's not unheard of. Like, there's someone that's just way better to just sort of control the pace from the front, right? They may not sprint full out for the whole time, but they may just choose to stay in front the whole time and just to understand that they can outpower them at the end. Don't want to screw around with the possibility of slowing right down and doing the whole cat and mouse thing. Got it. I was always curious about that because generally what I'm watching, because I don't watch a ton of it, it's at the very elite, like the quarterfinals on in the Olympics, and those guys would be so close that they wouldn't necessarily be able to overpower, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right. Speaking of sprinting and overpowering, track and field gets on in full earnest tonight. So I know how my day is going to go. I'm going to be watching a lot of track this week. I haven't been able to. Last week I was at a lot of events, and I am going to some events this week, but I'm going to concentrate more on sort of absorbing the entirety of the competition this week. Be watching a lot more online so that I'll be able to sort of feel that I've got the best of both worlds. That said, I am going out a couple of times. But that said, and then, on that note, Kevin, I'll let you say goodbye as always, and we'll talk tomorrow.
Until next time on the Five Ring Podcast on Outdoor Dork Studios and CanadaIsPlaying.com, we'll continue to cover the Pan Am Games and all your favorite sports. And until then, own your podium and watch the games.